Hey, welcome back. It's Amy Scott Grant, the spiritual ass kicker. And today we're talking about defining moments, okay? And we're actually putting those in their place today, is what they're doing. Like, defining moments need not define who you are, right? They don't have to be like a part of your identity. So, what do I mean when I talk about defining moments? I'm talking about like a pivotal point in your life. You know, when people talk about a defining moment, they mean, and then such and such happened and everything changed, right? Or I had an epiphany, or I decided, like you either decided something in that moment, or you shifted something in that moment, or your world was shifted for you, right? Like, for example, in an accident or a natural disaster, or, you know, it could be something that's out of your immediate control. So some of these pivotal moments have names. Actually, a lot of them do, right? It might be called divorce, bankruptcy, business failure, fired, loss or laid off, loss of a loved one, you know, so widower, grieving, miscarriage. So some of them are really big, right? Or it might have a name like rock bottom. You know, if you hear recovering addicts tell their story, they will describe the point where they hit rock bottom as a pivotal or defining moment in their life. So a lot of them have names. Some of them don't have names at all. You know, if you've ever heard a particularly profound speaker and just had this like aha moment of clarity, or if you've read a book or watched a video, or, you know, like some information was communicated to you, or someone spoke to you in a way that caused you to think of things in a way you had never thought of them before, or caused you to change your perspective, or you had a paradigm shift, to use another buzzword. Any of those types of examples could be pivotal moments. But it's really when you can look back in your life. You're not usually like, I would say a lot of people don't necessarily name them, you know, like let's say you hear something profound and you think this is a pivotal moment. I'm going to shift my entire life based on this moment. No, you don't usually do that. It's usually something that you recognize in hindsight, right? Like you look back and you think, and that was the moment when everything shifted. That was the moment when I changed, you know, or when I decided, yada, yada, yada. I wasn't going to be treated like dirt anymore. Or that was the moment I realized this is a toxic relationship, or I'm out of money, or whatever it was. Okay. So the challenge that I see in like all the years that I've been mentoring and coaching people and doing clearing work and stuff, the challenge that I see is that so many people define themselves or some part of themselves by these defining moments. And I think we have a tendency to forget they're not identity moments. They're actually defining moments. Have you ever been to a group session or done any kind of group work? And it doesn't have to be like spiritual work. I mean, it could be like a support group, or it could be, here's a group for new moms or people who love Pokemon, or like whatever. But any kind of group situation where everyone sits in a circle and you go around and introduce yourself, right? You've seen that happen before, maybe on TV, if it's never happened to you, but it's so interesting. Like, I'm always so fascinated to watch and to hear like what people say in these group settings, like how they introduce themselves. And if you've ever seen me in that kind of situation, I look like a total doofus because I don't like think in terms of labels like that. And so I just go, my name is Amy Scott Grant. What did you want to know again? Like, I don't have sort of a litany of like labels by which I define myself. Although if you asked me, like I could, but some of us sort of live in labels and some of us don't, right? Like, so you know what I'm talking about, right? You've been in those group settings where you go around the group and inevitably somebody is like, I'm Doris, I'm divorced, I'm 42, I have a cat named Garvey, and I like to collect postage stamps, right? And you're like, okay. So like you might argue that the only sort of real insight you got into her life is that she's a cat person and she likes to collect stamps. Why does she collect stamps? So I feel like that would be helpful to know. Like, what is so interesting about stamps to you? Like, I'm curious. But I've noticed a lot of people will start with, like, that's right off the bat, is like name, marital status, and age. Or some people will be like, I'm Beverly, I have 2 kids, and then they like go on this whole thing about their kids. And they're like, yeah, and then I'm just really excited to be here. And you go on to the next person and you're like, wow, that's interesting. I learned nothing about her other than that she has 2 kids. So and I'm not saying it's like right or wrong or whatever. It's just interesting to me. Like, it's so interesting to watch that happen. And I think for a lot of people, divorce is one of those things that it's like a defining moment or a pivotal moment that then becomes part of their identity. Like, they feel as though they're now labeled with this term like divorced. When, unless you're in like a relationship support group or like some, I don't know, there's like a lot of situations where I think that wouldn't even come up. Like, there's a lot of groups that I've been to where people say they're divorced and I'm like, I just always feel like, why did they lead with that? Like, was it recent? Did it just happen? Is it still a sore subject? Is it, are they concerned that people will be like, are you married? I don't know. But it is definitely something people will lead with, because I think that they take that pivotal moment on as part of their identity. So what would you say if I said, hey, let's go around the room right now and everybody introduce themselves, tell us your name, and tell us a little bit about you? What do you think you would say? Without thinking, without like, okay, what is she getting at? But just like right off the top of your head, what would you say? What's like the first 3 things that you would tell us about you? And once you think about that, consider whether those 3 things are like defining moments that have created a label for you, or are they just 3 like interesting facts about you? Because if you think about this, it'll start to show you where you've like taken on these pivotal moments as an identity. But what if, just playing devil's advocate here, what if we could look at those pivotal moments as just that, a moment where life pivoted, or you pivoted, or someone else pivoted on you, or whatever. No, don't get dirty. You know what I'm talking about. So, that moment when you filed bankruptcy, does that make you bankrupt forevermore? Is that like your title? Is that like something that you carry with you? Or is it like, so life and money was going along this way, and then there was this pivotal moment where we filed bankruptcy, and then we started relating to money differently? Like, that changed what happened going forward. Can you see how if you treat it as like a moment in time on a timeline where something shifted, that it doesn't have to define you, it just defined the direction in which your life took? Does that make sense? So if you see it for what it was, like a point in time, then you no longer have to carry that burden around with you. So let's just say, for example, let's say a person who's having trouble in the dating sphere, and maybe they were abused as a child or a teen, and then maybe they've been divorced twice, and maybe their last boyfriend was or girlfriend had some type of addiction or substance abuse or something. Okay? There's a lot of labels that person might put on themselves based on those experiences and those pivotal moments in their life. Can you see how, if they perceive their life as a timeline and there's boop, 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 right? There's these dots of things that happened, they can go into their next relationship very differently than if they're going into the relationship like, hi, my name is Sue and I've been divorced twice. So that's like labeling self as double divorce or something. Double divorcee. I've been divorced twice. I was abused as a teen, so that might depending on how they perceive it, but if they're carrying that label around, probably there's some label called victim that's on them with that. And what was the other thing that I said? Oh, their last, and my last boyfriend was an alcoholic. It's like, wow, that is a lot of baggage carrying forward into any new relationship, right? Like that's a lot, that's heavy, right? And I'm not saying, oh, you should just forget about all that stuff that happened or whatever. But I'm saying, like, consider if you treat it as a point in time, even like that one time you got fired and that one time you got laid off and that one time you screwed up big time at the job and got in a bunch of trouble. Don't carry all of that into your next interview. Don't carry all those labels into, unemployed, fired, let go, whatever. You don't have to take those labels in. That's just, you've had a long and varied history in this lifetime, and those were 3 dots on the timeline. So if you could treat the present like the present and move into the future, knowing that we all have a past without dragging those in as defining who you are, can you see how that frees and opens up so many more possibilities? I mean, what becomes possible for you if you're willing to shift and let go of those labels? So that's some food for thought. And what do you guys think? Should we do like a little clearing for I think that would be fun for the next video, is to do a clearing or like letting go of the past, letting defining moments stay at a point in the past instead of dragging them forward with you. So I'd love to see a comment, hear what you think about that. And if enough people say, yeah, we want a clearing, then I'll create a clearing and post that for you. So let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time.